Thank you, Ajay. It's a pleasure to have you on XRO, which is India's first AR/VR/MR podcast. So, Mr. Ajay Ponna Venkatesh is the co-founder of Scapic. He's been in the research team of Cisco in the video domain. Is amongst the first two developers at US-based VR startup Grid Raster Inc. So, thank you, Ajay. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's start with you, your background, and your backstory. What got you interested in AR, VR, MR to choose it as a business or a career opportunity?
Great. No, firstly, thank you so much, Eddie, for having me here. It's a pleasure talking to you. To quickly, I think, introduce myself and get into the story behind what led to me to get into AR, VR and Scapic. I think it all started around 2014-15. I was working at Cisco, and I think I got a little lucky there. I worked under a very star-studded a team back there under the CTO's office of video domain at Cisco, and we used to work on, I think, futuristic, cutting-edge technologies, which would lay the future roadmap for video technologies at Cisco. So while I was, engrossed in there for almost half a decade, I chanced upon this opportunity at Grid Raster. I think Grid Raster was at that time just recently founded by a couple of guys in the US, and they were, I think, veterans in the wireless technology space, and these are people who had 10 plus patents among them, and that served big companies like Broadcom, BC for almost 20 years, and they had started Grid Raster. At that time, to be honest, I didn't know what AR or VR was, and somebody introduced me to them and said, hey, I think they're looking for setting up an India engineering team, and you should probably try this. So I still remember, I think, telling my manager there and said, look, I have nothing to complain. There's nothing that makes me leave Cisco, but probably this whole technology of AR, VR, because I then started reading about it. I read about the Oculus acquisition by Facebook, and AR was not even written too much then, right? I think these are times when AR Kit or AR Core, I don't think even existed. It was all about VR, and HTC Vive was just starting. Oculus was just there. These were still tethered headsets. And I was kind of amazed by the fact that what I used to see in movies is now really possible. And although I didn't understand the technology too much then, but it kind of amazed me. And I just told my manager back at Cisco that give me a chance to do it. It's a gig I want to try. And please keep this position open because I think it may not work out and I'll come back probably. Right. And it's been 5 years and I'm happy I have not got a chance to dial my manager back, which is good. Think I have not looked back since then. But that's what got me into AR, VR ready. I think from knowing even what is AR, what is VR, understanding from the stereoscopic vision and what powers the science behind VR, the fact that VR as a concept existed since 1950s, and we are just, trying to figure out the better hardware and computing way to make it happen for the last 50 years. From that to, I think, building the first lines of code and, launching the product there for Grid Raster. I saw the team scaling up. They raised a couple of $1 million of funding in US. And I think that's 2.5 years were probably the most interesting times for the tech savvy guy within me, because everything was new for me, and I completely completely submitted myself into the technology, and I loved it. When I was going through, I think at Grid Raster, what we were building was an edge computing platform, which is to harness the power of cloud or edge to be able to do the heavy lifting in terms of high compute graphic rendering, while a simple mobile phone could be able to, play a VR game or an entire VR experience in itself. The VR comes with huge compute requirement, and mobile phones didn't have that. So we wanted to offload it to cloud and make mobile VR possible. That was the idea that we were trying to build. While I was doing that, I think the whole, every day I used to wake up and think, how could VR, and after that, around a couple of years when AR came, how could VR or AR change the way probably we order food, or when we come out of a mall and we try to look for an Uber taxi, can AR point out which taxi is mine? To maybe, when I'm shopping, can I see the sofa in AR before I order? Education, where I'd be able to probably do, trainings and etc. in VR. I used to wake up every day thinking about use cases in which AR and VR could impact lives. And there was no end to it. And that's when I realized that, what I was working at Grid Raster was one part of the problem, but the technology itself is something which is bigger than the use case. And what stops people from, adopting AR and VR at that point of time was I think content. So we wanted to understand why is it not taken off, especially in the geography where I used to live in, which is India, and why have people in India not started adopting it yet? Why have Indian businesses not used it yet, although it is possible today? And that's when we started with this, solving this big problem statement around content creation and distribution. Back then in 2016 or 2017, when we got started, you required a huge amount of gaming knowledge and coding expertise to create VR content. And we wanted to make it as simple as, creating a website in WordPress or Wix, or creating a design in Canva. So we wanted to build that equivalent for VR and build a simple no-code authoring tool for helping people who have no clue about technology, coding, and development background to be able to create VR content within a couple of minutes and distribute it on the web. We believe that if mass adoption had to happen, everybody cannot keep launching VR apps and expect people to download. It had to be a web link, and web was an open tool for us to ensure that we harness the power of web in terms of distribution as well. So that's what got us started. I think nostalgic 3.5 years back. Since then, we've come a long way. We then pivoted to AR because VR, I believe, is still continuing to solve the problems around hardware, which is the biggest bottleneck today for mass adoption. In terms of technology, VR is ready, but hardware is still limiting it to be adopted in a mass manner. And that was a time when ARKit, AR Core got launched. Billions of smartphones around the world overnight got the capability of augmented reality in the smartphone itself. So we, then pivoted to AR, and then we wanted to pick up a business use case because I think there was no business model we could generate, using a consumer-driven economy or a consumer-driven business model. So we pivoted to B2B and then picked up e-commerce as a beachhead. Almost 1.5 years back or 2 years back, when I attended NRF, which is the National Retail Federation Expo. Now, this is the world's largest retail expo, which happens in New York. And I attended that, and I was amazed by, the size of the market in itself, which retail and e-commerce itself is. The hunger and the aspiration within them to adopt technologies like ours, but probably the ignorance in terms of how to go about it. So I saw a great fit in terms of what we were doing to pivot it to e-commerce and start building for it, because we were trying to, stand for everything. And when you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. So, we wanted to pick some use case, solid use case to prove that, this is a technology not just spoken in PPT slides, but can actually impact real business metrics. So that's the journey. I think for the last 1.5 years, we've been engrossed with serving e-commerce clients with the same thesis, which is to empower 3D and augmented reality experiences on their e-commerce sites without writing any code, and then distribute it in multi-platform, which is omni-channel, website, app, Android, iOS, and desktop, mobile, web, everywhere. So that's what we've been doing, and I think we're partnered now with Flipkart to bring that vision to life in a bigger manner. So yeah, that's the journey, Eddie.
Lovely, super. Yeah,
but I think I should also thank my lovely team, I think, at this point, because we were credited with a lovely team back at Scapic. Now, here are two folks, Sai and me started Scapic 2017. There are at least 15 people through a journey who have believed, these two crazy guys with a crazy idea and said, yes, this is what we want to do as well. So yeah, I think lovely team who has stuck it through with us. And I think the reason why whatever you see Scapic is puts out is because of them. So yeah, that's been a great journey working with the team as well.
Lovely. How cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing your journey, your story. I'm sure you're glad that you chose to, move from Cisco back then, because this journey, I'm sure, is going to be really, it's not even started. It's because the partnership with Flipkart, I think, and the spatial computing is going to open up huge possibilities and economical benefits, because like you, I got introduced to AR, VR, MR in late 2015. Till that point in time, I had dedicated my entire life to music. My background is from the creative industry. I create content for advertising agencies and production houses. I used to compose music for jingles, and I've done a couple of Bollywood films. I've played for rock band for 20 years. I never thought that I would kind of pivot or move to completely my career from being a musician to the tech space. But life is sometimes plays these weird games and nudges you towards your destination, or where you actually are supposed to be. I think AR, VR, and future tech is like a rabbit hole. The more you kind of get into it, the deeper it kind of pulls you. It's so deep, and like you pointed out that the impact it can create in consumers or enterprise, it's humongous. We are at the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. All of these technologies, AR, VR, MR, artificial intelligence, 5G, it's converging, and it's becoming this huge tool which stands to completely redefine and transform mankind. And that's the potential that we are sitting on. Obviously, I mean, what you choose, and what the products you build, and your vision behind it, and your hard work, and the team you pointed out, and if you are at it, you can really do really cool stuff. And you also pointed out in the beginning that what you see in movies is becoming a reality. That's what all these technologies are doing. I think in another few years, we as a human race is going to completely change, and that's what really excites me. So let's talk about a little bit more about Scapic. When was Scapic founded? Your team, a little bit more about your team and the services and solutions that you offer at Scapic.
Sure, Eddie. No, I'm so glad that to know that you're from the creative industry, because these are AR, VR. These are technologies which probably are probably going to excite a creative person more than a tech, a nerd, or a developer, right? I think this is more for the creative minds, and that was the goal or vision with which we started Scapic in 2017. My co-founder Sai always used to say that, Ajay, I am the aspirant, and probably you have the ability to build. Now, how do you bridge this gap? Sai comes from a strong product background, creative background, and he's always the aspirant. He loved this tech, but whenever he had to create something, he was probably handicapped, because he had to learn those game engines like Unity and Unreal to even develop something small. That's what got us started. A small random conversation between me and Sai in Starbucks back in 2016, I guess, where, when I was in Gridraster, he had just exited his AI startup, and he was trying to do something in AR, VR. We, I think, spoke a lot, and we had a common goal or vision that, this technology deserves to be adopted by the masses. And over our multiple talks, we realized content was something that we wanted to pick, and that was one of the bigger things, because there were other things that everybody was trying to solve in terms of hardware, in terms of probably computer vision, in terms of SLAM, in terms of latency, edge computing, like Gridmaster, different parts which had to come together to make it happen. But we believed content is probably the most important one, which will cut horizontally, right? And irrespective of the domain, irrespective of sector, irrespective of industry. And that's what got us started with Scapic, to build a no-code platform which anybody can use to create a VR experience. And as I told you, we pivoted to AR, around a year or two back, and we have worked with almost 50 plus brands through a journey, Eddie. I think it's been a privilege to work with, clients like Flipkart, Royal Enfield, and Airbus. We had companies outside India as well, like Airbus from France, and we had a few SaaS. We then had a SaaS product which we launched around a year back, for which we had customers from Australia, Greece, US. That's the power of SaaS, right? You sit in India, build in India, and then get global customers. So we have majorly served entertainment industry as well a lot. We worked with Sony, Ecommerce, worked with sports brands like Mumbai Indians and Royal Challengers Bangalore. So a lot. I think Asia Cup. We worked with Asia Cricket Council as well. I think the initial 1 or 2 years was, kind of discovery. We wanted to just go and figure out use cases, which would then become, our product managers could not sit and think what features to add to the product, because there was no contemporary product there. We had to go out, do this, projects, do these solutions, and then, not just make revenues out of it, but also that used to be a big part of adding to our product backlog, which is if they wanted, are there similar people in that industry for which we can build it and build an automated product for them? So that was always, I think, what we did for almost 3 years. So in terms of specifically e-commerce, the solutions ranged from creating 3D models or digital twins of your e-commerce products, physical products, to be able to show people a 3D model and then an AR view where you'd be able to look at it in a real space before you buy, to virtual try-ons where you'd be able to try makeup and anything else on yourself before you buy, to shot maker solution, what we call, which is to generate high quality, visually rich, photorealistic images out of 3D and AI without a physical photo shoot being done. Different touch points in an e-commerce journey, which would influence the shopper or the buyer to be able to be more convinced to buy. I think these are the solutions which we majorly offered in e-commerce. I think, but for it, we have been, we work with, partnered with Facebook to develop a lot of face filters, which is the Instagram and Facebook filters for a lot of brands. That was mainly when entertainment and sports industry came in. We have also worked with deep enterprises like Airbus to solve a very complex problem, like probably, how would you be able to debug issues being remote, right? How would you be, remote maintenance and debugging is something that, we try to do with them. So I think we have touched almost every use case. We have worked with a company for healthcare use case. We have touched education partly somewhere. But I think e-commerce stuck to us mostly because we were able to productize this faster and better than anything else. So I think that's where I think we were trying to build a SaaS platform which had different products, mini products internally, which used to benefit e-commerce companies, and that's where probably our partnership with Flipkart makes a little more sense. So this is what I think we used to do at Scapic.
Super. So you mentioned about content play being the most important role being forward, yes, a little bit about what we started with. I mean, in 2016, though we didn't start with CGI content, we started with live action content. We built our own 16 camera rig. At that point in time, Google had a 12 camera rig, which was called Odyssey. And we took the open source code, which was available, at that point in time, and we added top bottom to create a complete 360-degree stereoscopic rig. At that point in time, we also built our own robotic dolly in early 2016, and the idea was to make that the camera that we built and take it to the market. Obviously, we didn't have the resources, neither the funding to do to go to the market. So I shot, directed, and produced India's first stereoscopic VR horror short film called Crack Review, which got showcased across some
very nice
VR film festivals around the world. And so that's been the journey, and it's been a fun journey. And I think content is going to play a huge role. What's the bottleneck obviously has been the challenges of distribution and monetization at this point in time, but possibly because of COVID, things have completely been accelerated, and we've got suddenly all the attention on AR and VR. So to my audience, the people who don't really know about what spatial computing or mirror world is, could you explain to them what spatial computing is, what the mirror world is, and how it is going to open up economical benefits, and which industries are going to get the most impacted with this?
I've often seen, right from the decision makers in businesses to end consumers, they still think this is a technology of the future. They're not able to relate to it. And probably if they're able to understand what is the science behind it and the basics of it, I think it should be more relatable. So I'm happy to take the next 5 minutes to answer that. I would put it in a very simple way. We can give whatever terminologies we want to: virtual reality, augmented reality, simulated reality, extended reality, mixed reality. I hope I covered all realities here, but the terminologies can be anything. But I think broadly, it is about simulating, using computer, the different senses which a human body has. It's as simple as that. Today, human body, the way it interacts with the world is through the dominant 5 senses, right? The vision through the eye, and the audio through the ears, the smell through the nose, the taste, touch through the different organ parts of our body, which is through touch and haptics. Now, if all of these realities that I spoke about is in one way or the other trying to artificially or using machine generate these different senses of a human body and make a human brain believe as if it is real, right? And so this is broadly what AR, VR, MR, or whatever fully or partly does. And that's probably should give people an indication also that there is a lot more to come in the future. Because today we are just talking about the most dominant sense of a human body, which is the vision, right? So all of these technologies today are picking up just that. But ideally, in an ideal world, if you ask me, I think we can exclaim and claim success when we would have successfully replicated all the five senses in a perfect manner using probably a bodysuit, or just a lens won't do that now, right? I think you have to simulate from the vibrations to touch to smell to taste, and everything has to be done. And that's where I would feel then the extended reality or simulated reality is completely successful. But I think the scientists have picked up the most dominant vision in human, which is the eye, because that probably creates the illusion of reality the most compared to anything else. Which is, if I'm looking at Eddie and I'm probably be able to smell somebody else, which is a different deodorant or something, I still will. My brain is still not convinced that it is not Eddie, right? I can still see you, which means, eye plays a very important part in terms of confusing, convincing, and tricking your brain to believe something virtual is real. So I think spatial computing today has defaulted to mostly being around how do you simulate or artificially generate what the human eye sees using a machine. So that's what everybody else does. All of these technologies do. The difference between VR and AR, the two pillars, or I would say these are two very different technologies, different hardware is needed, different kind of use cases. But in terms of, I think, the broad statement I told in terms of artificially generating something, that's the only thing that holds true. Everything else is different for these two. Virtual reality is where probably you simulate the entire environment around you and you completely block the real view out of a user, which is you wear a VR headset. You definitely need a headset because you need to block the real view. And then you have a stereoscopic lens, which kind of mimic the way your eyes perform. And then you have a stereoscopic content, which kind of gives you a feel as if you are in that scene and not seeing it from a third party perspective. Today, whether I look at a big screen LED, LCD in a movie theater or on my laptop or on my TV, I still am not involved in the scene. I'm not immersed in the scene. I'm still looking at it as a third party perspective. Whereas if you simulate this using the way human vision works, create a stereoscopic view, and then put it using these through lenses and create that content and put in a VR headset, your brain tends to think you're in that scene and you're not watching that scene. Which means if you're able to see a VR content of a jungle, you feel that you're in the jungle, and you're able to look around and see the top, bottom, left, look around. You feel you're in the jungle literally. That's what virtual reality as a technology creates. Whereas augmented reality is different. It doesn't cut you off from your real world, but it augments digital objects, virtual objects in your real world to give a perspective as if that is really placed there. It could be, open your mobile phone and you place it in your living room, and on a tap of a button, there is a sofa which appears there. So you look through the phone, the sofa appears. You look at it, the sofa is really not there. So when you look through the phone, the camera is able to, using spatial computing, generate an artificial 3D model of it. And this is, mind you, not just an overlay or an image. You may ask, what's the big deal here? I'll open a camera and overlay a sofa. The difference is that it's spatially computed, which means it understands the 3D space and it has anchored the sofa in your 3D space. Now, how do you test it? You go closer to the sofa, which you're able to see pointing the mobile screen closer to it. The sofa will not move. It will look as if it's there, and you kind of start zooming into the sofa. Now, that can happen only if the object is really placed there. If you're just overlaying, I move the phone, the sofa moves with me. Now, that's not a great technology. You move the phone, the sofa should not move. The sofa should still be there. You come back, you should be able to see the sofa. Now, this involves a completely different technology, which involves SLAM and understanding 3D world and space, generating point cloud, and then being able to understand XYZ coordinate of your real world, and then be able to anchor a object there. So this, I think, broadly, I hope explains anyone about the basics of how virtual and augmented reality works. I hope you still understand, virtual reality is still able to generate a sense. I'm told that there are some VR headsets which has cartridges which generate, I think, around 200 to 250 different smells, which is if you're seeing if you're able to see a VR experience where there's raining, the cartridge will emit an odor which will make you smell as if you're able to smell rain. Great. I think or haptic suits where you wear a gloves or you wear an entire suit where you're able to if somebody you're playing a game and sword hits you, you're able to feel the pain of sword going through your body as well. So I think the imagination is boundless. People might think I'm still directing the next Matrix movie, but all of this is happening. The vision is almost solved. Audio is almost solved. Spatial audio is still a little bit more to be developed, but it's almost there. Smell, taste, and haptics, I think, is also going to get there. So in terms of use cases, think about, if you want to experience Switzerland being in India. Now there VR is a better technology because you want to simulate the entire Switzerland around you. You don't want to just see the Swiss Alps in your dining room, right? That doesn't make sense. Augmented reality is not a fit for it. Virtual reality is great fit because you're then teleported into a completely artificial scene and you feel you're in Switzerland, in those beautiful Alps mountain, and be able to, go closer, look at the trees and sense everything around it. Training use case where you want to train somebody, give them a feel as if they are in a factory floor trying to operate something. You do it again using virtual reality. AR is where I think shopping use cases where you want to put the sofa not in a virtual environment but in your real space, your living room, your home, your dining space. Or if you want to probably do some education content where you want to animate something in your life where you want to look at a book and the image which is there in the book comes to life using AR. These kind of use cases, I think AR will most suit. So I don't see these as two conflicting or competitive technologies, but these are two ends of a spectrum. And depending on the use case, whether you want to go into a completely artificial world or you want to simulate anything on top of a real world, could be a great example, could be Google Maps. Today, Google Maps is so badly done because I'm in AR. I can tell that it's badly done because you're looking at a phone and you're trying to then imagine, okay, this is the street, and you're actually looking, is this the street? What if you can open the camera and the entire Google Map layout could lay out artificially on top of the road itself? And you're able to see exactly where it's pointing and which road it is telling you. And you're not looking at a digital screen and then comparing whether it's that case. Or even in e-commerce, right? Today, you have a silhouette of a man or a woman showing their height and then showing the bed comes to their hip, the bed comes to their chest. And you're imagining how big or small if for a 6 feet man, it comes to their hip, for a 5.8 feet man, where will it come, right? And then you're imagining whether it will fit your room or not. These kind of use cases is important. You blend or augment objects into real life. But whereas, gaming, you want to give a travel experience, training experience, or you want to treat, huge healthcare use cases. You want to treat somebody of a fear of height. You want to simulate somebody as if they're in top of Mount Everest and you want to make them jump. That can be possible only in VR. AR will not give that effect as if you're really jumping off a mountain. So I think I can go on and on, but I think in terms of basic science, I hope this gives a little bit clarity in terms of what spatial computing is. So this involves a lot of things, right? Right from being able to, when you turn your head in a VR headset, how does the machine knows that, you have turned by 5 degrees, 10 degrees, how fast have you turned, so that the artificial environment there also changes accordingly. If I'm seeing Eddie now in a VR environment, when I look left, I should look at the curtain here. When I look top, I should look at the fan. I can't keep seeing Eddie everywhere, which means the content needs to change in a same angle and direction. And these are done using hardwares like gyroscopes, accelerometers, which are there. It tracks the movement, it tracks the angle, it tracks the speed at which you're moving, and then it spatially computes that environment and gives it to you. Same is with the AR as well. When you move your phone, how do you know that the sofa should not come when you're moving here? When you go back, where should exactly the sofa come? Understanding the spatial environment, being able to compute the entire 3D world using just a normal camera, and then being able to anchor an object there. There's a lot of tech which happens. I think there are stalwarts in the space from the nook and corner of the world who have written books around it. They have done huge sessions around it. The science behind it is very, very fascinating and intriguing. But I hope, in terms of basic, I'll just sum it up by telling it is just purely tricking your human brain to believe something virtual is real. And that's all of these realities is. It's just extending your reality to believe something which doesn't exist or which is artificially simulated. How do you convince and trick your brain to believe that it is real? And that's what all of these technologies are aspiring for.
Lovely, lovely. I think you summarized it beautifully, especially towards the end. The whole thing is whatever we're doing is our effort is to simulate the physical reality, and we're getting closer and closer in blurring the lines of what of physical or digital is, and we are really pushing the boundaries, and with brain computer interfaces and things like that. I don't think we are very far away from stepping into simulated worlds where of physical and digital world, the lines of the physical and digital worlds are going to get completely blurred. We are getting into an exciting space as well as a scary space, because as soon as we get in there, you as a designer, you as an engineer, you as a creative have the choice or the freedom to redesign what we call reality. You could redesign everything. For example, you gave so many business use cases. E-commerce, I think we are just maybe a decade away to create photorealistic e-commerce platform with haptic feedbacks or whatever, where you will be able to touch feel the products, exactly how you step into a
Retail
mall.
store.
A retail store. So that's it. Like I said, we are getting into a very exciting and a scary space at the both time. The recent Flipkart acquisition has been in the news. There has not been many acquisitions of XR startups in India. Last was Tesseract of Geo. Could you talk a little bit about the Flipkart acquisition? How did it happen? And what's the roadmap ahead for Scapic?
Sure. No, I think these are still early days, so I may not be able to comment in detail about what's in store. But I think I'd request all of you to keep a tab on the Flipkart app and keep shopping. I think you will definitely see a lot of changes in the way of enabling visual enhancements in the terms of how you probably shop. I think our journey has been exciting. As I told, we raised a seed round of funding in 2017. I think it was a small round of funding, but I think we've always focused on generating revenues also, and not just burn the money and just build the product, because we wouldn't have been able to afford this pivot between VR to AR if we had not just if we had just relied on the funding, right? We had to generate revenues, and that allowed us to pivot 2-3 times easily and focus on it. As I told, we have been working on e-commerce for the last almost 1.5 years. We worked with Flipkart as clients as well, just like any other e-commerce companies. I think it was truly exciting on both fronts on what this partnership could bring along. We both, I think, looked at it as something more than just a vendor-client relationship, where we believe whatever technology we have built, we will be able to bring it at scale, of probably a Flipkart scale. And I think it is a great opportunity for us to be able to deploy in such a large scale, and that's what excites us, and that's why I think we decided to partner with Flipkart. But yeah, I think from their end as well, I'm assuming that it's the biggest internet property in India, backed by Walmart, and they've been an amazing engineering team, known as one of the best engineering teams in India. And I think they would probably leave no stone unturned in terms of giving their shoppers the best experience and integrating technologies which bring immersive or rather emerging technologies, like probably they did with the live.ai acquisition, where voice is becoming a very important part of Flipkart app now. Multilingual support, which is if you're able to just talk in Bhojpuri, or I don't think it's supported, but maybe Tamil or Kannada, you would still be able to go to Flipkart app and shop it. That's a great change that they're bringing, and I think it's India focused, and that's what excited us as well, because we are in geography here, and we want to solve for as Flipkart says, the problems of the Bharat, right? Solving for Bharat, and we want to solve the problems for Bharat. And one of the I think the pandemic has accelerated this, because I think the necessity for people to depend on e-commerce has gone exponentially high during pandemic. Now I'm just talking about generic e-commerce itself. if I used to buy a product before pandemic in e-commerce, or there were certain products which I didn't want to buy in e-commerce. I would prefer going to probably a physical store or retail store to purchase. What the pandemic has done is it has given us no choice but to depend on e-commerce to buy products, which means the e-commerce, which earlier for some people was just a luxury or a good to have. If nothing is there, I'll buy it. Today, that's the lifeline for people to shop. And with that being the status quo, now how do you help such consumers, such shoppers, give an experience which kind of mimics the retail experience? So this is a great responsibility on e-commerce players itself, because these are people who are not chosen e-commerce probably by choice, but because of the constructs around. There are people who probably have defaulted to e-commerce because there's no other safer way to go and buy anything. Now, you can't just be doing same thing what you've been doing till now, because in that way you're not giving justifying these people moving to e-commerce itself. So I'm talking in general for e-commerce itself, right? Now, that being the responsibility, how do you bridge the offline versus online gap? There are many ways to do it. One of the important ways in which you can do it, we believed, was 3D and augmented reality, right? Now, you would be able to, at your comfort of your home, be able to solve for issues with fit, which is how big or small, whatever product it is. How does it exactly look? Because you don't want to look at images and make a random purchase and then return it and then reorder it. I think we're solving some critical problems for e-commerce with this. So I think it's a great partnership at a great time, because we don't have to explain people, we don't have to thrust it to people saying, here is a feature add-on, why don't you try it? Rather, I think this is a stage where people are craving for something like this because they're frustrated having to look at just images and making an imagination and then buying something. I think it's time we change this, and I hope this partnership will be able to do that.
Lovely, lovely. Wish you the very best for it. And I guess we're getting into the spatial world. We break the barriers that we've been restricted for the last over 100 years, the 2D platform. We're getting into the spatial world, and it makes me very happy that a company such as Flipkart is jumping into the ecosystem and understands the importance of the spatial world. And I'm also happy not just for Flipkart, but also Jio from India taking a lead and getting into AR, VR, MR. So I'm very positive about what's been happening right now, because I've been here in this ecosystem since 2015. But then now there is this traction which is happening, and somehow you have to say, thank you to COVID, because all the technologies which were in a creeping mechanism has got accelerated only and only because of COVID. And hopefully because of this, maybe there is investor interest or something like that, because we have somewhere around close to 2,500 XR startups in India, but only a handful have got funded. So whatever I've been building, whether it's Immersion or XROM, the podcast, is to give a voice to these startups from the country and get them on the platform and help them share their journey or the product that they're building and make that reach out to the market. So maybe more we have more investor interest and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about Scapic's monetization model and also your partnership? Because I was on your website, saw that you have partnered with Shopify, and you also have built a Shopify specific product suite called PXU. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I think, as I told, we started defaulting into a SaaS-based business model of the late, where this platform, what we used to call as a product experience manager, a PIM or a PXM, which helps e-commerce companies to create and distribute different immersive experiences in different touch points of the e-commerce journey. It could be on the homepage, it could be on the PDP page, it could be a 3D viewer, AR viewer, generating photorealistic images without photo shoot, shoppable images, which is interactive images, a lot of different use cases across the e-commerce journey, and be able to integrate it easily. So this was a self-serve platform, and all of this was powered by cloud, which meant that there is a recurring monetization model there. And that's where I think SaaS was a great model to be able. I mean, it was a great opportunity for us to model it along a typical SaaS model where you pay as you go, right? You get we had different tiers for different kind of products we had. That broadly it was about, if you have X 3D models that you want to put, and all of this are anyways served by our cloud platform. Now, then you pay X dollars a month. And then if you want more 3D models, and then you want features like analytics, and then you want features like, hotspot integration, couple of advanced features. So like typically how a SaaS business model would work, we had different tiers based on the bandwidth that they would get to consume because it's a cloud-based platform, just like any other cloud service provider would give you a metered kind of SaaS model. We were aligned with that itself, plus advanced features that we used to offer as you go from a small professional plan to an enterprise plan in itself. So Shopify was one of the marketplaces where we thought GTM would become easier, because Shopify houses probably at, I think, around more than 500,000 e-commerce platforms which are built on Shopify. Now, I don't need to search anywhere else, because that's a gold mine for me in terms of market. And most of them are selling physical products. Now, what is a target market? It has to be an e-commerce company. It has to be selling any physical product. I think, and a physical product where it would make sense to put it in 3D and AR, right? You wouldn't want to probably look at a grocery, a rice bag in AR before you order. I don't think that makes sense. It's a force fit according to me. Or you would want to look at a vegetable before you order. So barring these outliers, I think majority of the products which Shopify customers, on which Shopify platform, e-commerce websites were built, aligned with what we were doing. So we built a Shopify app and deployed it on the Shopify ecosystem. Shopify has this app ecosystem or app store where any developer would be able to develop apps which would benefit the broader Shopify ecosystem. So we put our app there. I think we were one of the quickest to develop and deploy apps in the Shopify history. And that's where we could get a lot of global reach out as well. To be honest, we didn't get a lot of installs because it was just, I think, 8-9 months back when we launched it, and we got definitely great interest to begin with. And as usual, right now, a Shopify e-commerce customer doesn't feel the need of 3D and AR yet. But I think hopefully after the pandemic and the more and more knowledge spreads and more big e-commerce companies start adopting it, it is kind of a responsibility on smaller e-commerce companies to also start adopting it. So our Shopify app was kind of a replica of what we were doing generically, but tailored around Shopify ecosystem to help Shopify customers integrate 3D and AR easily into their e-commerce websites. So I think that's probably where our monetization model mainly was. We have probably done bespoke managed solutions for people as well, as I told, for healthcare and deep industry, enterprise tech and etc. So we were conscious to not do free POCs as much as possible and try to monetize it, because sustenance is one. And number two, if somebody's paying for it, it means really they care for the use case. And that helped us shape products better. Our product shaped better because we had real customers paying money for it. Although we did some managed services to do their solutions, it helped us shape the product in a better way, because we didn't have to imagine and build a product. We were depending on a client who was paying us real money to build the product. So in that way, I think it was very helpful.
Yeah. Right. So the COVID, I mean, obviously it's had twofold impact. There's one side, we were terribly disrupted. 23.9% of GDP is down. But on the other side, if you see, there has been so many plus points. Remote work, remote healthcare, everything is now being adopted. Technology is really being looked at. The entire the workforce now, you have realized that, you can be more productive sitting at home. You don't have to go through the daily stress and grind of traveling from work to office and office to work, which at times takes up 2 or 3 hours. And in a city like Bombay, the pollution, the stress that you go through, everything can be avoided. So yes, there are these terribly impact of COVID, but there are these benefits also. Suddenly I've seen that everybody's become an entrepreneur. Everybody's now figuring out way to survive and create businesses. I think we're getting into a fantastic time. I mean, one side, obviously, there is so much terrible things happening, to the underprivileged, and people have lost their jobs. But at the other side, maybe we have an opportunity in our hand to correct all the wrongs. There is a huge problem with economical distribution. There is a huge inequality over there. Maybe all of this could be corrected with exponential technology and those change makers who really wish and want to do something, to build a better world. So I personally am super, super excited about what is going to, come in the next 5 and 10 years. But obviously, technology is a double-edged sword. It's the choice that we make today will define the future. There was also something that I figured out that you guys have also built a tool called XR tool, Scapic's XR tool. Could you talk a little bit more about that and its capabilities?
Sure, I think that's something we put it out for the community to see if it helps anybody in the AR VR space to be able to get the basic toolkits and the tool chain necessary to get started. I wish we had it when we started, so we just wanted to build something, and the team did it mostly and put it out there. So it, I think, encompasses a lot of I think anybody who goes through it should be able to understand. But just to give one example in the interest of time, a 3D model is something which has existed for many decades now, right? From CAD to Maya's, the software like Maya and ZBrush and all that. 3D model is very essential for both VR and AR, because whatever you're seeing either in a completely simulated environment or whatever you're going to put in augmented reality are basically 3D models. But these are not real products. Now, the 3D model format is a big problem today for people who want to get started with AR and VR. All the 3D models exist today in .obj format, .fbx, .dae, and different other formats which have been historically, I think, traditionally being built by 3D designers for the last many years and decades. But these formats are not supported in, say, like, for example, augmented reality. Android and iOS both have their own specific 3D model formats in which they expect the 3D model to be able to even put it in augmented reality. Otherwise, the OS will not even put it in augmented reality. Now, how do you go ahead and convert these 3D models? Will you go ahead and recreate all these 3D models in the format which Google and iOS wants? Then you're again asking people to become 3D engineers and 3D developers to create something. So we wanted to build a no-code, simple drag and drop, simple solution where you would be able to drag and drop any 3D model, and then your output of it would be a compatible, AR compatible 3D file format, which you can directly take it and put it in Android or iOS directly. From toolkits like 3D model converters to a lot of other things. I think that's what XR tools is all about. So anybody, ideas are a lot, right? Ideas are with everyone. I think where ideas probably fail to come to life is because of bottlenecks. And one of the bottleneck for anybody trying to start with AR, VR could be to put something in AR itself. You have an idea, maybe you want to build something, allow people to paint in AR, just a random example. For you be able to allow people to paint in AR, you need to put the stand, the canvas and 3D models in AR. If you're not even able to bring your existing 3D models into AR, because you have to convert it into some format which these people specify, and you don't know how to do it, I think that's a shame, right? So we wanted to help solve such basic problems and just put it out for the community. So I'd request people to check it out and see if that helps them do it. I mean, that helps them bring their ideas to life.
Lovely. Any tips or advice to the AR VR startups who are just getting into the field and who are seeking funding?
It is, I would honestly, I have to admit that it's not the most sought after in the VC community, at least in India, right? We are lucky that we had the backing of the investors we had in 2017 who believed the future. At that time, we just had an idea, and this is usually what US does. I think India is going through the change. The VC community, I think, is much, open today compared to probably sometimes before. US is today what it is today. Silicon Valley is what it is today because one of the reasons is those venture capitalists who believed in ideas of the future. 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, what would be the next biggest thing? And you fund it today. Only then they would be able to build it. Especially emerging in deep tech, you require funding. It cannot be bootstrapped. It cannot be self-serve. Right. Yes, you can build a SaaS platform and do it, but you cannot go vertically deep and create strong IP-enabled products if you don't have the access to funding. I know I'm not a great proponent of burning VC money and just spending it, but yes, sustainable business models are a result of first you having to build strong IP around your product, and that strong IP to be built around technologies like AR VR requires huge funding. I think recently there are a couple of companies which got funded. I think Avatar.me got funded by Sequoia, and the small other funding news I saw as well. I think K12, which was trying to do something. So I'm happy that the community is opening up. It is investing for the future. The market size is big. I think all of us have slides of TAM which we can show, but I think it's getting closer there where it's no more 5 years, 6 years down the line. It's just maybe one or couple of years. And there are already companies who have proved with great business models in AR and VR who have been able to create great business models and monetization around it. So my only tip would be to, although, as a core product person or a tech entrepreneur, you would want to focus vertically deep and build the product. Given how the constructs here are, try to focus on monetization, try to answer the questions around monetization, business modeling, and GTM strategy. If you're covered around these, I think this is equally important if you're looking to raise funds in India, as much as just developing a cool product, which is probably having a strong IP. So if you're able to answer these, and we had to do that, if not for this, we would have probably gone vertically deep into one of the tech of AR or VR and built it. But today, the pressure of bringing monetization, business modeling, GTM made us switch from VR to AR to e-commerce, and that's our journey. I think each company should have figured out their journey in figuring out on their quest for monetization, business modeling, and GTM strategy. If you're able to focus on that, I think raising funds should not become as tough as it is today in AR and VR.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I have to keep on stressing on this, that, because of COVID, I think things are looking brighter. I've been personally having conversation with some very interesting folks who are now seeing that the XR startups over here have a potential and are actually keen to look at them. So I am very positive that in gung-ho that maybe in the next couple of years, the entire community could become much stronger and it could build, a sustainable and thriving XR industry. So what comes next for you? What comes next for Scapic, and what's the future map for AR, VR, MR in the country according to you?
Sure. I think it's an unfinished chapter for Scapic still. I think it's just another chapter for us. Chapter 1 is over, and chapter 2 is very exciting for us because it's very exciting for me and the entire team to bring or integrate whatever technologies we have built in the past into a scale like Flipkart and actually influence real shoppers in their ability to buy. That's what you can expect. I think we would spend the next 1 or a couple of years trying to integrate all our technologies with Flipkart, right? I think that's what would bring real value to what we have built, and some pretty exciting things that we're planning. I think you should definitely watch out for the Flipkart app and expect a lot of changes in the future. XR industry itself, I think every year we look forward to those Apple dev conferences and Google's I/O and Facebook's F8 to see what's new coming there. I think we are all firing from the giants of the shoulder, from the shoulders of the giants, right? And these are giants who are working on solving some critical problems around this industry. And I only wish that they continue to do it. And somewhere, I think, I hope the AR glasses or the wearables, which is what I think will fuel a lot of mass adoption, I don't think it'll happen in 2021, but hopefully in 2022 at least, or at the end of 2021. We have some prototypes being launched. Very exciting to see what the new updates of AR Core and AR Kit would be. Apple has launched its new LiDAR sensor cameras, which means there are hints definitely being dropped about what's the next big thing. So it's an exciting industry for XR, probably the penultimate year before, it goes completely, erupts like a volcano in 2022. So I think all of the XR startups should definitely continue to be invested in it. We are at the cusp of, I think, redefining the computing interface, which is not going to be smartphone. Smartphone has ruled for the last 10 years. I think it's time to look at the computing interfaces beyond smartphones. And I think the next 1 or couple of years would be the stepping stone in terms of giving life or birth to the new computing interface, which I think is the wearables. So anything around it, be it hardware, software, content, individual use cases, all of it, I think, will come to life when the wearable comes to life. So very excited about it. But till then, I think phone-based AR is definitely something which is, which cannot be ignored. A lot of billions of smartphones today, which have the power of AR. I think we should just go ahead and exploit this as much as possible before it all moves to the wearable. So 2021 is going to be, I think, a lot of use cases around mobile AR, which will come to the fore. And I'm happy to be a small part of this, bringing the mobile AR revolution to life.
Lovely. Wish you guys the very best. I think you guys are doing a great job, and what a great note to end on. I think, yes, we are in the next couple of years going to be converging a phone and a personal laptop into one single wearable device. 2021, I believe the 5G spectrum is going to be released. 2022, I think that's going to go, maybe it's going to get mass adopted. And personally, it's my thing. I think 2022 or 2023, there's going to be huge eruption of this technology, with companies like Apple and Facebook and Google coming up with their own AR and VR devices, which is going to, I think, start replacing or mobiles. And in the next 10 years, I think mobiles will give way to a single wearable device, where we will enter the next computing evolution, the spatial world, where every physical object will be machine readable and will be giving us information on which we will be able to build great businesses. You are doing a great thing with the no-code authoring tool. I think that is the future, where you democratize content creation, because, like I said, we're getting from the 2D world to the 3D world, and you are giving an opportunity to those creatives, to the marketeers, who do enthusiasts who don't really know, the coding and stuff like that, but you're giving them an opportunity to say, oh, yeah, here's a tool. I mean, get on it and you'll be able to create an AR, VR world. So thank you for doing that, and keep on doing. Wish you the very best. To my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please hit the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I love talking to you. Thank you. Bye.